Salutations, Serene Eminence here. The cases to be covered via the following installment includes:
You see Angilau grabbing what was later identified as a pen and lunging at the witness testifying. Then shots fired by a U.S.Marshall, killing Angilau.
It's 12:40 p.m. Courtroom 56, Domestic Relations Court. A hearing underway involving Joseph Haynes, 16. A deputy in the courtroom was knocked to the ground. He fired a shot, a single shot, Minard says hit Haynes. The teenager rushed to the hospital where investigators say he died.
Prior to officially proceeding with comprehensive case coverage, I would like to extend my sincerest condolences to the families and all individuals impacted by the loss of these precious lives that I should be extensively discussing. May the unique legacies of all individuals mentioned via this video live on through the contents of this compilation and evermore exist within the hearts and memories of those of whom cared for them most. Disclaimer: viewer discretion is advised. Sensitive topics such as graphic depictions of violence via firearm shall be discussed moving forward. Please cease your viewership if you are uncomfortable to any degree with the aforementioned mature matters. Now let's proceed to peel back the lethal layers of this homicidal courthouse quartet. Siale Angilau was one of 7 Crip gang members on trial for a RICO charge when he insistently charged at a witness testifying against him at the stately Salt Lake City courthouse. The federal courthouse was a new fixture of downtown Salt Lake City. Angilau was the first defendant to stand trial in the state-of-the-art metallic and glass building, equipped with security features designed to protect jurists, the accused, the accusers, civil servants, and citizens alike.
United States Courthouse Annex, Salt Lake City, Utah. The project captivated everyone on the jury as a complete essay. The architecture is bold, it's clean, it's thoughtful, it's consistent as an expression of the exterior wall, it's beautiful fins. As you move inside, the quality of light and the manner in which light is understood and treated in the building is outstanding. I think light, as it relates to American justice, is primarily related to one of truth. That idea of transparency or the luminosity of a space is very uplifting. It's the kind of aspect you see used in multiple typologies to uplift or illuminate aspects of space or form or the individual. To introduce light into a typology of justice is fantastic. It's brilliant.
Even with everything seemingly in place, one unsuspectingly crucial article had yet to arrive. No drapes were available to cover the tables in the courtroom, and the tables could not be moved nor repositioned. As a result, Judge Tina Campbell overrode the marshal's policy and ordered that Angilau be unshackled in front of the jury. U.S. Marshals who kept security in Salt Lake City's federal courthouse mentioned that it's their policy to keep such a defendant shackled during trial. Defense attorneys counter that seeing a client in handcuffs and leg irons can create an assumption of guilt among jurors.
As Angilau told the judge he would behave, so he didn't need to be shackled.
When you have a jury, you always want the defendant to appear like he is in regular, civilian clothes, that he's not in handcuffs, that he has a fair shot at being treated fairly by the justice system.
But Tolman says this video may have the federal court reconsidering its guidelines in these situations.
I'm sure that those measures are being reconsidered by the court as they look at it.
Judges, who ultimately are the ones responsible for ensuring a trial is fair, often strike compromises by ordering the shackles to be out of sight of the jury. During Judge Campbell's interview, an FBI agent later wrote, Judge Campbell indicated that not having Angilau shackled during his trial was an error in her judgment. This lack of communication and adherence to perception over protocol inevitably played pivotal roles in the defendant's demise. And these fundamental oversights christened the new building with scrutiny regarding the realities of courthouse violence. Angilau's RICO trial was just beginning as his life met its abrupt end only 1 hour into the proceedings on the morning of Monday, April 21st, 2014. The attacked witness was called to the stand at 9 a.m. A bit before 9:30 a.m., Angilau was shot several times. A little past 11 a.m., the offender was still breathing as he was transported out of the courthouse by emergency personnel via a gurney. By 2:30 p.m., the official death of Angilau was confirmed.
Angilau was reportedly breathing when taken to the hospital, but news of his death was confirmed around 2:30 p.m. Mountain Time.
In providing more context to the perpetrator's profile, Siale Angilau was 25 years of age at the time of his deadly encounter with the U.S.Marshall. Angilau was a member of the Tongan Crip Gang, or TCG. When he was as young as 14, he began participating in robberies of convenience stores in Salt Lake City and eventually received the nickname C-Down. He also was accused of having a role in a 2007 chase in which another gang member shot at U.S. Marshals. The Marshals weren't injured. In connection with that encounter, Angilau pleaded guilty in state court to obstruction of justice and failure to stop at the command of police. He received up to 15 years in prison.
He's been in prison since 2007 for violating his probation. He was then convicted in 2008 for obstructing justice and failure to stop at the command of an officer, but was recently released in the custody of U.S. Marshals pending his current trial. Police say he was the last of several alleged members of the gang to stand trial. 7 others were convicted in 2011 for crimes including robberies and assaults. According to the Salt Lake Tribune, federal prosecutors say the gang committed robberies, assaults, shootings, and murders over 2 decades to, quote, expand its operations. Aside from Angilau's gunshot wounds, no other injuries at the courthouse have been reported. Officials say a mistrial has been called.
In further contextualizing the crime incident and resulting timeline, at about 9 a.m., prosecutors called the first witness, of whom was a former TCG affiliate who was serving a sentence of up to 30 years at the Utah State Prison for robbery and assault. The witness was scheduled to testify in an upcoming murder trial too, and other gang associates were supposed to testify later in the trial. A variety of police and prosecutors were in the courtroom to hear what the witness would say about TCG. The prosecutor never got around to asking the witness about Angilau, and his approximately 23 minutes on the stand, the witness solely testified about how TCG operated. What happened at 9:23 a.m. took only 5 seconds.
A judge ruled the public should see this video. On trial for racketeering, you see Angilau grabbing what was later identified as a pen and lunging at the witness testifying. Then shots fired by a U.S. Marshal, killing Angilau.
And I saw Siale just running towards the victim, and then all of a sudden I heard the gunshot. Everything seemed like it was slowed down and a little bit silent, but it just was very surreal. I never thought I'd see anything like that.
I think there's no question, though, you can turn a pen into a knife or its equivalent. You can take somebody's life with it.
According to court documents, the witness was shackled and handcuffed.
I think it happens so fast that it's easy if you slow down the video to maybe argue or suggest that there was enough time to do something different. When you watch it live, it's very hard to see that anything different could have occurred.
What the officer was had in his mind, that there was no time for anyone to tackle him.
Even Judge Tina Campbell, according to witnesses, said she had not seen anything like this in her 19 years on the bench.
Judge Campbell, the presiding judge at the time, stated that when she saw the shots being fired, she thought to herself, well, that's probably all that would have stopped him. Judge Campbell agreed with the fact that the incident happened so quickly that there was no opportunity to de-escalate the situation, and there was no time to grab Angilau.
What led up to the attack? Peterson says Angilau gave few warning signs, despite his demeanor toward the witness he charged.
I could see a hate on Siale's face. I suppose it requires a few shots to get him down, because he was really big and he was charging really fast.
The Angilau family attorney, Bob Sykes, offered a contradictory point of view.
He had a ballpoint pen, okay, and I agree that can be a weapon of sorts, of course, you know, but you've got maybe 10 officers in there, 10 marshals, all fit, well-trained, armed, you know. They don't need to shoot to kill this young man who's going over that that witness partition. He didn't need. They weren't entitled to use the death penalty on him for an assault. Okay, with a pen. So that's the problem I've got with the judge's decision. This marshal was out of control. He did not need to use deadly force.
The marshal who fired has never been publicly identified. The U.S. Marshal Service takes the responsibility of protecting the federal judicial process very seriously. They say they do not discuss specific security measures or methodologies they utilize regarding judicial security. 3 months after the shooting, the U.S. Department of Justice announced the marshal who fired was justified in shooting Angilau and that no charges would be filed. Respective to the family and community, the Raise Your Pen Coalition held a Unity for Truth and Justice march. They marched from the Capitol to the state courthouse in an effort to raise awareness regarding the use of lethal force. The family and community as a whole are ultimately seeking justice not just for their family member, but for all of whom may have or could become a victim of the same violent instance. "16-year-old Joseph Haynes was attending a hearing related to a firearms charge at Franklin County Domestic Relations and Juvenile Courthouse in Courtroom 56, where he was haphazardly gunned down. Franklin County is located in Ohio's capital, which is that of Columbus. It is the most populous city of the state, with a 2020 census population of 905,748 inhabitants, and it is the 14th most populous city in the U.S. Columbus has been a haven for immigrants since its founding in 1812. This is seen in historic neighborhoods like German Village, Italian Village, and Hungarian Village. In direct relation to the time and date, on Wednesday, June 17, 2018, which is deemed Benjamin Franklin Day, at approximately 12:40 p.m., Deputy Richard Scarborough ejected a single shot into the abdomen of young Joseph Haynes. At precisely 12:45 p.m., the deputy scrambled to secure assistance subsequent to reporting a Code 10, or critical trauma case alert.
Need Code 10, 5th floor, courtroom 56.
Those were the words radioed out by Deputy Richard Scarborough right after he shot 16-year-old Joseph Haynes. This newly released video shows the moments after Haynes was shot outside courtroom 56. You see deputies rushing through the hallways. Soon, crime tape was placed around the scene, and there seemed to be some confusion on the radio traffic about what happened.
Control 1 is calling squad now. Do you know what's wrong? Seizure.
Someone on the radio believed Haynes had a seizure, but Deputy Scarborough quickly corrected them and repeated what he said before.
Negative, he was shot. I repeat, he was shot in the abdomen. Please, send the squad now. Medics are en route to 400 South Front.
Medics began working on Haynes as they rushed him out of the courthouse.
Detective Devine en route with Medic 2 to Grant Hospital.
According to the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, Haynes was pronounced dead less than 40 minutes after the shooting.
Respective to the juveniles charges, according to the Franklin County Sheriff's Office,
the hearing involved menacing with a firearm charge and also some discussion about an electronic monitoring device that apparently the court had assigned earlier in his case. That hearing was being conducted by Magistrate Sanchez. At some point, as the hearing was concluding, there was an altercation that ensued involving the deputy and some of the family members.
In reference to the youthful victim, the victim was, of course, Joseph Haynes, of whom was only 16 years of age at the time of his murder. His aunt, Mrs. Ryan Dotson, also referred to the juvenile as Joey, stated,
"He really wasn't a bad kid at all. He really wasn't. He was a sweet boy."
At some point, he got on a bad path.
I mean, yeah, everybody gets on bad paths.
Haynes' path, including a charge of threatening someone with a gun, led him to Franklin County Juvenile Court yesterday. His aunt, Ryan Dotson, wasn't there, but her mother and sister, Haynes' grandmother and mother, were. She says this is what they told her.
deputy grabbed a hold of my sister, and that's when Joey freaked out, and he told the deputy, "Get your hands off my mom, get your hands off my mom." And Joey, he didn't even jump on his back or nothing. He just touched him on the shoulder. Get your hands off my mom. Well, they end up getting into a little struggle or whatever. My mom and my sister was trying to get in to calm Joey down, and then that's when the deputy ended up getting knocked down.
They say the deputy was knocked to the ground, and that's when he fired his weapon.
They say that, this officer felt like he had to act to protect his life and the life of everyone in that courtroom.
By what? Killing a 16-year-old?
10 TV spoke by phone with Joseph Hayes' grandmother, who was in the courtroom. Now, she would only say this, quote, "It didn't happen the way police said it did. My grandson should never have been shot."
It was the last chance. You gotta say to him.
The final words from Geraldine Haynes to her grandson Joseph.
Joey went over and grabbed him by his shoulders, and the guy slung him off. Slung around and slung Joey to the ground, and then he got on top of Joey. And then Joey's hands was up in the air like that. Then the cop put his hand down by the side, and the gun went off. He put the trigger on my grandson.
Records show the teen has a history with juvenile court, a record that includes charges for assault and carrying a concealed weapon. His grandmother calls a lot of the charges against him fake.
And he was trying to get his life together. I won't have a chance.
Mr. Kyle Fortney was described to be a father in mourning.
I couldn't believe it. I still don't believe it. I wish it would. I just think it's a bad dream.
This week, he flew from his home in Florida to lay to rest his 16-year-old son, Joseph Haynes.
He loved being on the water. He loved anything outdoors. He used to go fishing with me on the lobster boat. He'd go out for a week at a time on the lobster boat with me when he was little.
But the boy who loved water was also a teen in trouble. He was in juvenile court last week on a case where he was accused of threatening someone with a gun. It wasn't his first criminal charge.
He was a 16-year-old kid that found a gun, thought it was cool. Oh, I got a gun, waving it around. And, the one time he had the gun, he shot his own finger off. Like, I mean, a 16-year-old kid, he's not gonna shoot nobody. I mean, I took him hunting before, and he cried when I shot a deer.
Fortney wasn't in the courtroom with his son last week. Haynes' mother and grandmother were. The sheriff's office says Haynes and his mother were involved in a physical confrontation with Deputy Richard Scarborough. Scarborough ended up on the floor when he shot Haynes.
I understand they got to defend themselves, but beat them up. You got a taser, you got a stick on you, just, do something, but not shoot them.
But he doesn't place blame solely on the deputy.
There shouldn't have been arguing. I believe, he would be here today if it wasn't arguing. And it just, the anger and the hurt kind of just go together. And, I'm sad one minute, I'm angry one minute. If the deputy did it too as an accident or whatever, like, this deputy got to live with that for the rest of his life. So, I mean, you killed a kid, and that got to be hard. I wish he didn't. I wish he did something different, but, he has to live with that, And I don't know what he was feeling at the time or what he thought at the time, and that's something he has to live with.
Fortney has his own history of mistakes, some of them also criminal. He wasn't blind to his son's failures, but he doesn't want him defined by them.
I just want everybody to know he wasn't a bad kid. Like, he wasn't. He was a good kid, just made bad decisions. He was really loved by a lot of people. And, I hope these kids see what happened and, take that as a lesson.
He says what hurts the most is that, unlike him, his son didn't live to learn from his mistakes.
I want it to, I want people to see this and go from it and change the way they are. There's other things out there that you don't have to be on the streets. You don't have to live this life just because you are in the environment. There's more out there in this world. Like, there's so much more.
NBC4's Katie Farrell spoke with Haynes' uncle tonight, who questions why the deputy felt the need to shoot. Katie is live downtown and explains what happened.
Good evening. You know, Daniels, his name is, Daniels is the uncle, and he says that what happened and what started out as a verbal confrontation between Haynes, his mother, and a deputy never should have escalated into gunfire. And he's also wondering tonight what is being done. He's calling for an external investigation to find out what he says really happened.
Keith Daniels says his nephew didn't have to die.
How do you pull your gun, point it in somebody's stomach, and shoot them while they're on the ground?
Daniels wasn't at the courthouse Wednesday afternoon when 16-year-old Joseph Haynes was fatally shot in the torso. He says pictures, video, and accounts from his sister and mother tell a different story than what the Franklin County Sheriff's Office says what happened.
It was murder. That's how I look at it. From the video I seen out, all the public, it was murder. It wasn't no self-defense, oops, it was an accident.
The Franklin County Sheriff says during an altercation between Deputy Richard Scarborough, Haynes, and his mother, Deputy Scarborough was knocked to the ground where he came under attack. The department tells me the deputy is still on leave related to head injuries he sustained. Daniels argues the deputy was twice the size of his nephew and says the deputy knew the teen was unarmed, as everyone who enters the courthouse is checked for weapons.
He's 200-some pounds with a gun. You got a taser, a mace, you got a gun, you got all types of de-escalation that you could have did if it was not no fight for your life.
The Fraternal Order of Police tells a very different story.
He responded, came in there, and was violently attacked by multiple people. I was with this deputy. He does have injuries. They are visible. I'm certainly not a doctor, but it was very clear to me in my experiences that he was attacked, and this was a fight for his life at some point. He was assaulted, and obviously at some point he felt there was a risk for his life and everyone else in that courtroom.
Though he visited the deputy in the hospital, FOP Vice President Keith Farrell admits he has spoken with no direct witnesses to yesterday's confrontation. The Franklin County Sheriff's Office yesterday described the incident as an altercation involving the deputy, Haynes, and Haynes' family. They say the deputy was knocked to the ground.
What makes it a life or death situation is if you attack me right now, I'm a police officer with a gun. There is a gun in play. That gun could be taken from you very quickly, and someone's life can be taken.
Glenn McIntyre, 10 TV News.
The Sheriff's Office also says threats have been made against the life of the deputy involved. Now, while they investigate, they are not releasing his name. He was treated and released from the hospital for injuries during yesterday's altercation.
In prying with precision into the perpetrator's profile, Deputy Richard Scarborough was 43 years of age at the time of the Juveniles' untimely slaying. A review of records revealed that Scarborough had never been involved in a fight alone while on duty for the Sheriff's Office until the fatal shooting of Haynes. He joined the Sheriff's Office in 2008 after he was laid off as a deputy in the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office in 2007. During his 6 years with Hamilton County, he worked mostly at the jail in Cincinnati before working court security for about 6 months, records show. Experts say working at a jail or courthouse is a different experience than patrolling. Deputies working at the jail are trained to work together to handle incidences in a contained environment, while patrol deputies might radio for backup, but often have to proceed alone when responding to calls. Critics have said Scarborough should have de-escalated the situation rather than utilizing deadly force. As directly disclosed by Deputy Richard Scarborough, despite all the chaos unfolding around him, Scarborough told investigators that his primary concern was the threat posed by the teenage defendant. Scarborough said he was dazed after being punched repeatedly by Haynes, who had jumped on his back outside a fifth-floor courtroom. As he fell to the floor with the boy now beneath him, Scarborough thought his holstered pistol and stun gun were being wrestled out by Haynes. I was dizzy, slightly disoriented, and I was afraid I was about to lose consciousness from the multiple head strikes and that Haynes would get control of any one or more of my weapons. It is at that point that I quickly unholstered my gun and fired a single shot into Haynes' left torso to stop the attack upon me. I did not believe I had any other reasonable alternative to protect my life or the lives of those within the courthouse. The county prosecutor's office said in a press release that they presented evidence and witnesses of the fatal use of deadly force incident to a Franklin County grand jury. The testimony and evidence is kept secret under Ohio law. After deliberations, the Franklin County Grand Jury determined that the use of deadly force was reasonable under the law and declined to issue an indictment. Franklin County Prosecutor's Office recused itself from the case to avoid the conflict or appearance of a conflict because of their working relationship with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office and because Franklin County assistant prosecutors were potential witnesses to the events surrounding the use of deadly force. Scarborough returned to security duty nearly 10 months after the incident at the court on November 5th. In specific relation to the crime incident and timeline, Haynes was at the courthouse with his mother, grandmother, girlfriend, and 7-year-old brother for a hearing on delinquency charges against him involving a gun. Witness accounts make it clear that he and his mother argued outside courtroom 56 and were even more disruptive during the hearing, with Haynes directing profanity and racial slurs at court officials in frustration over the options that he faced.
NBC4's Dan Perlman talked to a witness who was inside the courtroom during that shooting. He's live tonight with their account of what happened. Dan?
Yeah, and you know, just within the last few minutes, I want to show you a protest breaking out right over there in front of the Franklin County Courthouse, opposing the use of guns in the courtroom. Now, this began right around the same time I got my hands on surveillance video from the courtroom. I want you to go ahead and take a look at your screen. This is 12:45 Wednesday. You can see a deputy running down the hallway toward courtroom 56. The camera did not pick up the altercation. It's a bit shaky as security adjusted for the chaos. Within moments, 5 more deputies run toward where Deputy Scarborough shot Joseph Haynes, and then they lead Haynes' family away from the scene. Within the last hour, as you mentioned, I did speak with a witness who was in that hallway on your screen.
I think that the court staff that was there and the additional deputies that arrived tried to handle the scene as best as they could to reduce the amount of chaos.
Now, Constance there shared these still photos from video she took Wednesday. You can see deputies surrounding Haynes. As Constance told me, Deputy Scarborough was trying to help him.
Scarborough, who was in the courtroom during the hearing, followed Haynes and his family out of the courtroom after Magistrate Larry Sanchez continued the case to a later date. The group turned a nearby corner to a side hallway where Scarborough and Haynes' mother became argumentative and forcibly shoved the deputy with both of their hands to the deputy's chest as he told them to leave. At that point, I told the mother she was under arrest, Scarborough wrote. She resisted as I struggled to take her to the ground. That's when, according to several witnesses, including the teen's grandmother, Haynes jumped on the deputy's back. Court probation officers Kevin Owens and Malcolm Tanksley, who also followed the family out of the courtroom, told investigators that they jumped in to pull Haynes off the deputy, with everyone involved in the struggle going to the floor. The probation officer, Kevin Owens, told the detective that when I jumped in on the kid's back alongside Malcolm Tanksley, the other probation officer, that the deputy had no idea who we were. I think the deputy felt like he was being jumped by the entire family. In contending with the considerably real perception that the entirety of the family was orchestrating an attack against him, the deputy was met with the decision to either defend himself or to defeat the attackers, and thus the abrupt death of the juvenile operated as his escape route. Akin to the concepts of citizenship and courage that were explored via the 1997 film Starship Troopers. A citizen or a civil servant has the courage to make the safety of the human race their personal responsibility. Analogous to those of whom are engaged in military combat, the criminal justice sector is a parallel arena wherein war is waged betwixt order and chaos, and sorrowfully, on occasion, in the name of protecting and serving, sacrifices are made to thwart further threats to immediate and futuremost public safety. Whether the honorably slain were judges, attorneys, sergeants, bailiffs, deputies, court reporters, and beyond, we sincerely honor them for their devotion to service. So I thank you kindly for tuning in with me, beautifully beloved beings. And until next time, you all stay safe, stay stealthy, and stay serene.